I will, because I want to make sure they have access to the information about our panelists and also while they're talking. So, okay. So we don't have to, awesome. Vanatech. Okay, and I also saw how to do it. I know I'm not gonna be able to do it on site, but I was like, oh, it's that easy. So just so you know, I was studying while you were gone. And I'm like, I put this here. Yup, and I put this here, and we're sharing screen. Look at me. We're so tech savvy at the DOE. You taught us well.
Miss Aisha, did
Yes.
we spend a little time together in Lewiston by any chance?
Hey, Christopher Monroe. I don't know. Let's you see my face and I see yours. I don't know.
That's you. You came
It's
in.
me.
You came in when it was when we had our our secondary alternative ed program at Lewiston.
Listen, I was just telling them about how it was trial by fire. So I will say that my time at Lewiston Public Schools was interesting because it was so entrenched in how to deal with our pandemic crisis. And so I did a lot of good work there. I took a lot of hugs. And also I can halfway remember the people, although I run into you all very often.
I will say this. I absolutely loved working there, but I got an opportunity to move here to Brewer to do it. And
Well, good to
I
meet
live
you.
up here, so it makes it a lot easier to do it
Yeah.
than driving from,
I agree.
driving from Bangor down to Lewiston.
Well, were you in Bangor? Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do for children.
Well, that's what we all do, right?
Yeah, exactly. We keep each other. We keep each other. Like, you still doing that, Chris? Cool. Okay. Not so bad out here.
Yeah.
I was just saying
We'll
to a
get through
panel
it.
we had earlier that there was a lot of mentor or new teachers in the classroom or upcoming teachers. And when I tell you there was a whole table of gentlemen, and I was very excited because I always think about you all being unicorns in education and in the classrooms in the building. And so again, I'm not saying thank you just to be thanking you, but really thank you for what you do. I really appreciate it.
That whole crew that we had over in Lewiston with Sarah Sims and that whole group, we're all still in contact with each other.
I was gonna say, still friends with Shank, Sarah Sims. Hi, everyone. I think we're ready to get started. I was gonna wait a couple more minutes for folks in the room, but thankfully there are several of you online. Several, let's see, I don't see. Bishop, so this is gonna be a little bit more intimate. I'm excited. Okay. All right, we'll get started. Welcome everybody. So today we're focusing on practical Maine-centered practices that help educators, especially colleagues who are underrepresented, stay, grow, and advance. My goal is to connect strategy to the day-to-day conditions we actually can influence, and that's our time, roles, feedback, opportunity, and fair process. And so I'm hoping that you'll leave with one specific practice that you can use even next week. And I'll get to that shortly. But I want to go ahead and ground us. Here's the DOE vision and mission at a glance. I am not sharing my screen yet, so it doesn't matter. Let's do that. Let's go back. Wait, where am I? Man, I was getting all excited. It says stay co-host. All right, more. Let's start this all over. Share screen options. Multiple participants can share at a time. What are you talking about? Share my screen. Okay. And again, hi, people in the Zoom. I apologize. I'll go back to if I can. Uh-oh. Vanna, my screen is stuck. I'm not sure what's happening. I just want to move this back to being awesome. Oh, you know what it is? Because I'm using this thing. Okay. Y'all bear with me in the room as well. Hey, y'all. It's a little bit more intimate too, so I can actually address y'all face to face. And please, Libby, Caitlin, Kyle, please feel free to come off screen. We've got 2 in the room and we've got our panelists. We want to make sure that this is virtual, but as intimate as possible. At least that's what I'm desiring, because I like it that way, to make sure I know the people that I'm talking to and working with, so that I can make sure that this is, hey, Caitlin, that this is specific to you and your experiences. Because like I said, I want this to be Maine centered, and we'll get into that. So I'm going to ground us here in our DOE mission and vision. We want a vibrant, respected, educated workforce that can innovate, lead, and learning environments that are safe, supportive, and equitable. Everything we do today should strengthen those 2 aims for us. And we'll anchor in the 2 DOE priorities, and I'll get to that shortly. Priority 2 is a strong, diverse, educated workforce. And priority 3, overall, is that equity and excellence for all learners. Everything we discussed today ties back to those. If a practice doesn't strengthen the workforce and advance equity for all students, it won't be, students won't, excuse me, it wouldn't be our focus. So, all right, so just talking about our goals today, going to strengthen our capacity to retain and support diverse educator talent. Name some cultural signals, structural practices that help people stay. And then we're going to commit to a practice you'll implement next week or share with your educator community in Engine, our professional learning management platform, or at your meetings next week or at your school next week. Shout out to Indigenous Peoples Day. So you got an extra day to think about it. And again, we'll talk about the community, the Engine community. If y'all haven't already signed up, likely we were able to tell you about it before you got here to this space, but I'll go over it if you need to toward the end. All right, fun stuff. We had some Menti issues earlier in the day, but I'm gonna try it again. And if Menti does not work for you all, I want you to answer in the chat if that works, guys. I want to start by listening to the room. And the room also, hi, this one room. Oh, I meant to say, we are, like I said, one Zoom room. I see that everybody's an individual. I appreciate that. We've been doing a lot with our engagement series where we have a whole bunch of folks. And like I said, I like to make sure I know who I'm speaking to. But this is one room, so we are using the Mentimeter to make sure that we're capturing what's going on with you all, as well as what's going on in the room. And you can take it back with you so that you have that information for you. Like I said, I'm going to be emphasizing next week because I want this to be actionable and impactful immediately. All right. So what conditions help people stay and grow in your school or your organization? I want you to add 1 or 2 words or phrases. If you're online, I guess use the link in the chat, or scan the QR code. Like I said, we're going to try to be flexible with Menti. And okay, so let's just use the chat. And in the room as well. We'll start It's two of y'all. Y'all can use the chat too. You want to join the Zoom? Do we have a link to join the Zoom? That's all right. Y'all not scared to use your voices. All right. So I hear common vision shared by all members of the district. Yes. Morale. What's some other ones? Oh, panelists, y'all feel free, but don't give it all away. You can also share as well. Trust in the professionals. Money. Thank you, Caitlin. That's fair.
Sense of belonging.
Belonging again. Hi, Caitlin. Belonging in the room as well. I would say fun. I'm putting that in there. Sense of community and caring, connections. Opportunity for educator voice. Oh yeah, y'all have a mic now. Can y'all, in the chat, can you hear in the room? If you can't, let us know. Okay. Opportunity voice. I also want to put opportunity to get better, advancements. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I know those are mine. All right, so this matters in Maine, and I'm gonna talk about it why. I'm gonna get personal. Like I said, this is personal to me as a leader in Maine, as a person who I don't think we say from away anymore, but someone who moved to Maine 8 years ago. As a Black person, a Black woman in Maine, I've lived what it means to carry the weight of representation while navigating systems that weren't designed for me. And retention matters for students because relationships compound over time, right? And in Maine, we hear consistently about diverse educators we've recruited to work in the state being the only or carrying invisible responsibilities, unclear advancement. And so I want to name that diversifying our workforce is broader than just demographics. It also includes neurodiversity and diversity of thought as well. So that means building everyday conditions. And we mentioned them, belonging. We did accessible routines, protected mentorship time, transparent criteria, flexible pathways that support BIPOC, neurodivergent, multilingual, multi-ethnic educators to enter, to stay, and to advance. And in smaller and rural communities, these conditions are the difference between a constant churn and the stable teams that students need to carry on and that they can count on. So when educators feel like they belong, they have room to grow, and they can see an equitable opportunity for advancement, they stay. And when they stay, students get stronger and they have a more stable learning environment, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So I want to just reemphasize for you all that I'm anchoring us in priority 2 and 3. Now, priority 2 is our workforce backbone. I think some of you have heard of the Teach Maine initiative, Teach Maine framework, but Teach Maine gives us the roadmap that we have, and it's up, it's available, you can find it online. But for me, expanding those entry points, residencies, grow your own apprenticeships, removing structural barriers and retaining folks through real supports, like we say it and we know what it sounds good, but I really do want to emphasize, like, there are folks doing this work and making these moves and making these decisions as humans, not as a strategic plan or a priority. And so I want to make sure that we're getting that piece in there. Priority 3, because those two are connected. That's our why: equity and excellence for all of our learners. So when our educators stay in advance, students get that consistency. They get mirrors and windows, as we talk about, and they get high expectations that actually last. So we're aligning the Maine Department of Education priority 2 and 3, and we're keeping our attention on the conditions, not just the programs. I think I'm making that. Is everybody with me on that? Because it's easy to talk about diversifying an educator workforce, but when you live in a state like Maine, we're second whitest. I keep saying this, but I always like to check and make sure that we're still there in that hierarchy. But we're the second whitest state in the country, and with that, there are a lot of things that we talk about when we talk about equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging that are just out of reach for educators in the state of Maine, especially when we talk about those rural communities where there is just the one person that claims a diverse identity, but there's no other people. And we also are rural, so there's not a lot of ways to connect and communicate and build that community for those folks. So that is our lens. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Teach Maine and is in development. Today's session aligns by centering retention conditions that schools can influence right now. So the Maine Department of Maine DOE Educator Workforce Data is led by Diana Doyron, our Higher Education and Educator Supports Office. She highlights patterns in retention, time to hire, panel composition, and pathway barriers. So these insights inform the practices that we're working with today: mentorship by design, transparent pathways, supervisor development, and fair hiring routines. Uh-oh. Oh gosh. So I put Menti, again, Menti has been just not my friend today. And so instead of taking that QR code, we're going to talk in the room because it's small enough and in the chat. And please, again, come off mic and speak out loud. I would love to know what supports are truly in place in your buildings, your SAUs, and your programs. And you three aren't allowed to answer because you're going to talk about it later. So how about the two? I know. So for us, I can start in the room. What's some things that we're doing? Well, I was hired. We had a DEI director, but what we said was it needs to be embedded at this point. And so in order to do that, we actually meet. We have a space because there's about 200 plus people in our department right now. And so we needed a space where we can say, well, what does embedding equity, belonging, and inclusion look like for the state of Maine and all these programs? And so every other Wednesday, I hold space for folks to bring their work. We listen to what they're doing. They come possibly with a question or an inquiry for the audience, and we break out and we talk about their work. We talk about like what our work, how our work is related to theirs, and how we can make sure that we're staying connected and we're staying in tune with each other. So we're actually doing the work. However, that's in the Department of Education. And so, of course, we're maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 steps removed from what's actually happening in the classrooms and the schools. So can I call on people? How y'all feel about that? Are we educator, leader educators in here? You feel like you could be put on the spot? Christopher, since you were already my friend before we got here.
Guilty by association.
What? Yes, sir. So let's talk about let me stop share. And can y'all hear him? Okay. A little bit. And I'll repeat. So just so you know, our crowd mics aren't up either. So we're all going to be friends. So what's some things going on in your building that you think are helping to support the retention of your educators, diverse
Well,
and
we've done I can speak on a number of different levels. I can go district wide, or I can go about just our alternative program. And I'm really excited about our alternative program. We have multiple pathways that we've created in the alternative ed world, which is exciting for us as educators. I have a staff of 6, not including myself, that I'm the coordinator of. I can't say that I oversee, but I'm the coordinator of it. We have a person that sits in a seat higher than I, but we all have the autonomy to do our jobs. We
Okay.
all have the opportunity to work together, which is vitally important, and to be able to share information back and forth and to share best practice. But the most important thing that I feel is that autonomy piece, to be able to meet the students where they're at rather than asking them to meet us where we're at. So we have the autonomy to have the creativity and the flexibility, whether it's through a in-person program or a virtual program. And we have paired off our staff members with who fits best in those scenarios, which is a really cool experience.
Thanks, Christopher. So I expected more. So you don't have to give as much of a spiel, because you do have times, we will have time to do that. But I would love to know the question, aim your question, the question should be aimed at like time, roles, feedback. Anybody else? How about now? Go. Great phones internship.
They started this new thing on the Wednesdays when they have already releases. They'll mix all of the grade levels together so that they get to meet all these other kids, and they'll be in different groups and different classrooms and the teachers and being involved that way. And they'll all be doing the same activity like last time. They all put the blocks for the garden. So they all basically made like how to make our school walk and was kind of prompts so they had to do. So like the friendship and the family and like that was kind of the book we read that went along with it. So it was just a way to have everyone included while we mixed up and like learning each other.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Emma, oh, that's you. Oh, that's her. Hybrid. How about you, Jeffrey? What are some things that are happening at your school to support your retention of our educator workforce? Oh, is this going to be an issue where I can't hear people again? Did y'all hear some? Oh, I know we heard Christopher. Okay, go ahead, Jeff. I wasn't able to hear you though.
I didn't have my microphone on.
Well, that matters.
I'm fairly new at our school. I've only been here 6 weeks, so I really haven't. I'm here more for the education of what I'm learning from my coworkers than I am from participating and learning or sharing some of my knowledge so far.
Well, thank you, Jeff. But I challenge you as a newcomer, because we're recruiting and retaining people. And usually when educators are recruited, they have, and you're new to the space, you have a more objective eye on what's working, what's not working, especially since it's for you, so to speak.
Yeah.
But not to put you on the spot. Anybody else? How about you? Hi.
I think I'm from a very small school down the street, grade one. We have only like 50 employees, and this past year we've been working on accreditation, and it's shown some big lights on areas that we can grow in. And so I'm doing what I can to help in that. But I would say that there is a lot of room for growth right now. We don't have a lot to.
Like, what's that look like? What are y'all doing? Just looking is actually a thing.
That's just for examining. We did have a DEI person, the training that she did where everyone was kind of bored. And like,
oh no, that's the worst. Okay.
Big opportunity. I'm personally interested in figuring out how to get our community involved, like fix both problems. Like there's no DEI training happening, and we're very disconnected from our community because we're this private school. Costs a lot of money to attend, and I feel like there's something there. So my idea is to bring in some conversations with other people, so to make some connections.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I have so much to say about that, but I'm gonna keep going. But I'll say, actually, I'm hoping that next time talks about community and how to do that. Okay, just putting a plug in. All right, so I want to get into the panel discussion real quick and just talk about why these voices. Our panel centers on decisions and routines that change conditions. It's not a program tour. So that's why earlier you might have heard me say, do you want the slides in the back? I want you to know all about these people. I hope that y'all came because y'all trust that I know what I'm talking about most times. And I think this is what y'all need to hear. But they change conditions. These perspectives and lenses will help us see the range see it as school-based pathways that grows leadership from within, university partnership pathway that reduces certification issues and access barriers, and how time was protected, how roles and criteria were clarified, where barriers surfaced, and how adjustments were made. And also which practices you can adapt for this semester or right now. So I'm hoping that that'll be helpful for you. And I'll guide with the story first, short story. Like I said, they don't want to do a program tour. Just a caveat, since we're small, I had a lot of programming and doing it myself. I was like, this is not about programming, this is about the moves. And I had a lot of time centered around them telling who they are and their story and how. And again, thank you, Philip. It's like, hey, can we just do our little spiel, our elevator speech, and then really get into the questions? So I'm hoping that we can get into the questions, but I'm also hoping, I'm very excited for you all to ask the questions that you need so that you can make impact right now. Because they're all small things. This is a really big topic, but there are some small things that we can do right now to make it so that we're working and going on the right direction with diversifying, supporting, retaining our educators. All right. Oh, I'll say it. I want you to listen for how time was protected, how roles were defined, how criteria was made transparent, and how those barriers showed up, challenges that they had, and how they were addressed, and also which practices you can adopt this semester. I said semester, school year, trimester, immediately. Okay. So really quickly, hi, Dr. Flynn. Flynn Ross is a professor and chair in teacher education at the University of Southern Maine and the faculty coordinator for the Maine teacher residency. And her work focuses on teacher preparation and partner pathways that connect university coursework with what's actually going on in Maine schools. So that's why I chose, because she's making things connected and relevant. Okay, she collaborates with SAUs and community partners to reduce entry barriers, for example, through mentor clinical experiences and navigation and support around coursework and certification. And we got John. Hi, John. John leads TLS at KWE, and he's going to give you all of those acronyms. I can't stand acronyms, but they're saving space. I've asked him to speak to the decision-making behind TLS and fellowships and the educator in residence placements and how they partner with schools, what conditions they set, times, and also where you see readiness, belonging to improve for early career educators. And then Philip's work illustrates a school-based leadership pathway with mentorship by design, stretching roles, recognizing evaluation, and support through certification timelines. Philip, to start, I would love to start with you and jump right into it. When did you see a barrier to retention or advancement, and what was your first concrete step? So after you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then the same question goes to the two of you. Again, what did you see, and what was the first step that you took?
If I look this way, actually.
Yep. Yeah, look right at the camera.
It's not muting. Vanna.
Oh, then I can go back.
Thank you.
Very good now.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm Philip. I am the building principal at the Longley Building in Lewiston, which has the Next Step program in it. I also work with a couple other co-creative partnerships in Lewiston Public Schools, but essentially Tree Street Youth, which is a community-based nonprofit in Lewiston that's across the street from us, and Lewiston Public Schools came together to co-create these programs rooted around relevance, identity, and social emotional learning. So we've done a lot with that, but that's like the very quick spiel. The first barrier, even though I laugh at myself for saying this, is like the first barrier I noticed was with me. When I'm from Maine originally, I went away, worked in Massachusetts for a while. When I came back, I figured out very quickly how hard it is to get certified, how hard it is to jump through the steps. And this was despite having already been a teacher for 5 years. And so the first thing that I did is when I, using my personal privilege and, comfort with navigating institutional systems, I went through all the hoops to get certified, really recertified because I felt like I was already prepared to be a teacher. But I tracked everything. I tracked how much it cost. I tracked the classes that I took. And then I sort of wrote all of that up, and still to this day, anybody who works for me, I coach them through that certification process. Because the thing that you get when you apply to be a teacher in Maine is you get a deficiency letter, which I think is just a really negative framing for what we're trying to do. I know the letter now says like, we're so excited you applied, but then it proceeds to tell you how you're deficient. So I try to tell people, particularly people from, backgrounds that aren't traditional educator backgrounds, or folks who maybe don't see themselves well represented, specifically made folks from, educators of color, folks from low income backgrounds. I sort of say like, just stick with me on this. Like, I'll work you through it. We can call the DOE together. We can write an email, and I just take that care. And places like Lewiston actually do a lot of work. They do course reimbursements almost for every single dollar of a class up to one. They communicated that all the time, and it's still hard to navigate. So that was the barrier, was just sort of realizing how many hoops you have to jump through. And if you are someone who is from the community, which we've hired a lot of folks from Lewiston. I'm proud to say several people who work at our school were formerly students at our school. We, through our relationship with our community based organization and that nonprofit, we're aware of who has the skills. So I think that's important. Build partnerships that identify people that aren't just signing up to apply to, a teacher residency program, for example, and then, help them navigate the system, because it is not simple or straightforward. So those are just the two things I wanted to highlight. I can talk about more, but.
How about John, we'll go to you and then we'll go higher.
Yeah, sure. Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yes. So what was a challenge you saw?
Yep.
Or something you saw, and what was the first step you took, or
Great.
the first thought you had to make the change?
Yeah, so I'm John McDevitt. I'm the director of the leadership school at Kiev Wabash
TLS.
Education. So those are the acronyms, KWE, TLS. Our organization is really well known for the summer camps, wellness tripping summer camps that we run. Camp Kiev for boys and Wabash Camp for girls, but TLS is our flagship school year program, which is registered with the DOE as a limited purpose 1st through 12th private school. And we serve about over 2,000 Maine public school students throughout our programming throughout the year. TLS, we employ about 25 fellows throughout the year, throughout the school year. And those fellows run our on-campus residential outdoor school programming, as well as our outreach programming during basically the fall and the spring. And then during the winter, they serve as educators and residents at different public schools in the Mid-Coast region. So we support them in their growth as educators. They're all college graduates who have a passion for working with students and are interested in a career in education and teaching. And I think really the barrier that we first saw that we wanted to tackle is like, what sort of supports are in place for young people who maybe were late in the game to realizing that they wanted to work in education, went through college or went to a college that doesn't necessarily have a teacher cert program. So basically what the first step that we took is we retooled our entire TLS program. It's been in existence since the early 80s. And it's had a couple different iterations over the years, but really during the pandemic, we really expanded it to become a full year program designed to be more of a teacher education program than sort of a social emotional learning experience for students. So to support our fellows, our educators, as they pursue the teaching credentials for the state of Maine, we employ them as full-time employees with benefits, including room and board, and we fully subsidize all of the coursework that they need to earn their teaching certification through the state of Maine, or for the state of Maine, rather. I think by nature of the work that they do in the fall and the spring, which is really focused on our experiential approach to social emotional learning and environmental stewardship, they're building classroom management skills and SEL frameworks that are really going to help them thrive in a traditional classroom setting when they establish themselves at a school building. And they're also, through the Educator in Residence program, they're getting the experience in those traditional classrooms and completing all of their student teaching hours, which usually happens over the course of about 2 or 3 years as EIRs, to earn their teaching certification. So they have a ton of support in like the TLS leadership here and through our partnership with USM and Flynn. And like just the monetary support to know like they're gainfully employed. They're not sort of going into all sorts of debt to pursue something that they're passionate about, which I think it can be a huge barrier for somebody who didn't necessarily know when they were 18 years old that like, yeah, I want to be a teacher. So they're all, you know, some of them are pre-service teachers, some of them are early service teachers who might have earned a certification in one area, but then realize that they would actually rather be teaching in this area. And there's just a lot of, we're trying to break down the barriers of entry, I think, to gaining the certification that's important to teach in a Maine public school.
And I feel like it makes it easier to pivot when you decide, hey, I think I really like this. I'm just shameless plug because you're trying to recruit educators at
You're
a
muted.
Oh, I am muted.
You either gotta speak up a whole lot or unmute.
But then it's gonna echo.
No, it's only the sound.
Oh, boy.
Mic should be fine.
Oh, what I was saying in there in Zoom world is that it opens the space for flexibility in changing your mind, or once you convince a student that, you know, this is a good fit for you, even though you've been working in XYZ, teaching may be great. And so usually if there are a lot of certification issues, financial barriers, it makes it hard for folks to even think about making the decision. So with that, I want to go over to Dr. Flynn at USM.
Thank you, Aisha. Today I'm representing the Maine teacher residency, which is in its 4th year. We've now supported 120 residents across the state. We're partnering, so it is a project, not a program, because we partner with 8 educator preparation programs across the state, serving over 32 school districts and 120 residents. The barrier that we really see is that financial, people not being able to take a year unpaid time to become certified teachers, but knowing that people need to be mentored into this field. It is so complex that to be a good teacher, you need the support of mentored practice. And so the residency model provides a year-long mentored paid position in schools. Large urban districts have been doing this for over 20 years. There's great research around retention and recruitment. Some of the most racially diverse students come from residencies. In Maine, we're finding a lot of first generation candidates who financially can't take a year unpaid. And so we have several models, and it's on our website in the slides. Our ideal model is the co-teach model that started in Biddeford and now going strong in Old Orchard Beach, that the district pays for an additional person like an ed tech, but not on an ed tech contract, to work in large classrooms. Old Orchard Beach has a bubble class, so they, rather than hire a single teacher for each grade level, as that class proceeds, they're hiring a resident and a different resident each year that allows that bubble class to be supported. In Biddeford, they'd had co-teach larger classes to help have 2 adults in the room at all times that help support the high need students, and provides the new teacher this year of working under a very veteran teacher to learn from them. So we have the co-teach model, the ed tech model, and then we have a lot of conditionally emergency certified teachers. So people who have been hired into these positions with no background or experience, but they are the teachers of record, and they particularly need a lot of support and providing guidance and advising around all those hoops of how do I get these certification courses, making the courses relevant and applied in their classroom so that what they're doing in their job position counts for some of their university coursework. We're not making coursework that is in additional to what they're doing in the classroom, trying to really make it related. So those 3 pathways really supporting a variety of students, now over 120. And we've had several multilingual, one gentleman near PhD from Iraq, getting math certified. Another woman's a chemist at a charter school. And so, yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, and people who financially could not, several young men from Maine who could not take a year without pay. And so they're coaching and they're subbing, and we've got them in classrooms so that they can meet all the requirements, and now hired very locally.
Thank you, and thank you. So I want to keep going with those questions. First off, since it's only 2 of us, I can open to you all and on screen. Are there any questions you have about those challenges, about the program itself? Before I move on, I want to make sure everybody understands what these pathways look like, what those challenges are, as well as, and we will not be using that Mentimeter. We're using the chat. And y'all are gonna talk to me. Thank you for this beautiful slide that is going to be the bane of my existence. But just put it in the chat, come off mic, just if you have any questions. I'm gonna just do my polite pause. Okay, so, oh, that wasn't very much pause. Y'all good in there? Y'all good in there? Okay, so I wanna go to the next question. And you touched on them a bit when we talking about conditions. Did I start with you? Which conditions did you intentionally create to support retention? So time, goals, the things that we just talked about. So what were those conditions, and what did that look like for you as an individual leader to make sure that they were created, implemented, and that they were actually working for your staff?
Yeah, you want me to start?
Yeah.
I love a spreadsheet with colorful drop-down menus. So to not joke, I'm an administrator role now, and your time quickly gets sucked up with a million different things. And almost every administrator I know is trying to basically squeeze in their classroom observations in the second half of the year, because the first part of the year is so wild and there's so many startup costs that you don't get around to it. And I felt like I was doing my people a disservice on that. So one of the conditions I set was just everyone is going to get a beginning of the year, even if it's pretty short, meeting with me, where we are going to talk about what stage is your certification at, when does it expire, what courses are coming up, and then there were action items for both of me and that person to follow up on. And I added this year that I've created a document where all of the agendas for those check-ins throughout the year is already there. So it just keeps me honest to, whatever the flavor of the month of December is that's distracting us. When we open the document to meet, it's like, oh, right, you said you were going to sign up for that class, or I was going to give you more support on, classroom management strategies. So that's sort of most recently what I've done for something tangible. But I think a former colleague of mine shared with me this great podcast that I forget the name of the episode, but I'm happy to send it to you. I
Okay.
send out where it talks about burnout is the combination of 3 factors: a lack of belonging, a lack of self-efficacy, and a lack of energy. And the way I've tried to set conditions around supporting that is sense of belonging. I really think that's on me as a leader. So am I creating opportunities for my staff to connect with each other on just a human level? Are we celebrating them? Are we, giving them intentional moments of like, I see you? So I think we very much have to take ownership over that. That one's not as tangible, but like you have to constantly be working at it. Self-efficacy, kind of to Flynn's point, like the PD we provide has got to be relevant. Like it's got to actually help their teacher practice. It can't just be go through these, things you could get in an email, which happens in school districts probably all across the country. So we definitely control that one. And then the energy one is really just, I try to, I also learned this from a different coworker, like provide decompression time. A good way to do it is like, I'm going to give you time to decompress. Tell me how you're doing. How much time do you need? You set a timer. You let people just go. If they need to fully vent, they're not looking for you to solve their problem. Just hear it out.
That's in the middle of the meeting?
No,
Or
I would.
just in the-
Well, I've done in individual meetings. I've done it at the top of team meetings. Do it all sorts of different ways. But then you always close a decompression with a opportunity to make a commitment or a closing statement. So the spin isn't just out of control. And I've found that as like a small thing can chip away at somebody's, just like lack of energy, because this job is incredibly complex and will drain you like crazy. And so people seem to find it validating. So we use that terminology, like, I need to decompress right now. I say, how much time do you need? And then we do that. So yeah, I just kind of keep going back to those things, because when I think about people that have left, and I like those relationships still stay with me, and I've had some hard lessons myself of sort of people moving on when I really felt like there was still growth there, or we still had opportunities. I tried to never let sort of my losses, I try to pay it forward on those fronts. And I find it was probably due to lack of belonging, lack of self-efficacy, or lack of energy, or a combination of all three as to why folks from diverse backgrounds leave. So I carry that with me.
Yeah, thank you. I have follow-up questions, short, but I want to give you the opportunity to answer the same question, and then we can kind of
Sure.
pop on.
And it's sort of like, what conditions have we set to?
Intentionally create support.
Yep. I think about this in sort of like two different lenses for our staff, for our fellows, basically because they are teaching professionals who work and run our programs on our campus in the fall and in the spring. And then they're also it's like through the EIR, the Educator in Residence programs that they do in the Mid-Coast region during the winter. There's two different sets of needs there. And I think while they're on campus, we do a really extensive 2-week training with them where they get to sort of like build the camaraderie in the community with their peer educators, to really like become a unit and a team, which is very intentional in the way that we go through that training. Like we give them all the tools that they need to actually run the programs, and we make sure that we create space for them to connect with each other and form the relationships that are going to sort of like sustain them through what can be really, really challenging work on campus. We're also lucky in that because we're a non-traditional school, basically all the students that we serve throughout a week leave at around 11 o'clock on a Friday. And so every week we're fortunate enough to be able to do like a really intensive debrief with all of our educators in one place where we talk about like what went well that week, what was challenging that week, what are we thinking about for the coming weeks. We do, standard like announcement type logistical things as well. And then it's just sort of like a silly, fun, kind of like community building thing. We do something called slips every week where we literally have a pizza box. We cut a whole lot of, people take scraps of papers and they just write out shout outs for their peers and their educators that happen throughout the week. And then you pick out as many as you put in and read them anonymously. So it's as silly as things of like, I wish 6-7 would just die, right? Because maybe a population, the student population was there, was obsessed with it. But also things like, hey, I want to shout out Grace because she did a really great job with her cabin this week. Just like navigating really challenging situations like during the after hours, right? So the way our programming works when students are on campus is that our educators are either assigned class where they are leading the social emotional learning programs and are climbing and challenge elements and all the experiential stuff, or they're assigned to cabin, where basically from about 3:45 in the afternoon until lights out at 9 o'clock, they're with the group of students that are on our campus, a small group of students that are in their cabin. And, we were founded as a summer camp, and that's really where sort of like the camp sort of ethos shines through. So they're playing all sorts of fun games and getting to know each other, having dinner together, and sort of like a family style arrangement. And so being able to sort of, there's all sorts of skill building that happens for our fellows during that time as well. And being able to sort of like change gears and assign them for classes or cabins from week to week so that things don't get stale for them. Like they get to flex their different muscles and get to build those muscles in different venues from week to week. And then EIR, where they serve as like an entirely free resource for these schools, these high need schools in the Mid-Coast region. They need a whole different level of support, whole different like conditions of support, because they're basically one person from TLS that goes into this school without necessarily a whole lot of context. So we make sure we set up meetings with the mentor teachers and the administrators at those, their EIR placements. We, as the TLS leadership, are really involved in supporting and checking in with them. And we're really fortunate enough to have the capacity in our leadership team to help them navigate all of those hoops that they do need to jump through as they're pursuing their teaching certification as well. So they're not just doing this in a silo where they're trying to think through like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z and keep track of it all. Like we help them with that. And Flynn has been instrumental in that process as well, kind of like helping us make sure that we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's that we need to, so they can continue to progress towards that teaching certification. So they're they become experts in SEL teaching, sort of as they're also building the skills to thrive in Maine public school classrooms, the traditional classroom setting.
Can I add something super quick?
Sure.
Just you all have like resources and time, and
Yes.
we also do a thing with sort of PD that's unique to our building, but the shout outs thing or sharing bright spots really takes no time. You don't need
It's
any
so
investment
easy.
in it. It's so easy to do it. So just I highlight like even we need programs like this and
Yeah.
we need them well resourced, but also you could do little things like shout
Totally.
outs and bright spots for
Right.
free.
It takes so little time, and like people's faces just light up when they hear their name being read too. And you can really tell that like, even if it's something really small, just that recognition that someone else saw what they were doing and appreciated it and valued it is worth its weight in gold.
Thank you. Before you come to you, there's Jeffrey says burnout is also connected to frustration, anxiety, and tension, which is also evident in our students from time to time. Certification is a qualification process, but in my mind, retention is a credibility process. Investing, and can y'all hear me over there? Can you all hear me over there? I'm
Do it better. Investing in staff to help them develop patterns to create credibility is in the classroom. It answers the question of how. And I'm going to pass it on because you mentioned the programming. So Flynn, if you won't mind talking about your part in that.
Yeah, so in the Maine teacher residency, institutionalizing support's a big piece of it has been the financial. And so we provided each resident with $3,500 toward tuition support. But we also provide their mentor teachers with a $3,000 stipend. So recognizing that the mentor teachers are so underappreciated and overburdened in our structures of schools. So as we have the statewide, nationwide teacher shortage, the veteran teachers are having to mentor in new teachers, many of whom have not been necessarily well prepared. And so the burden on those veteran teachers for constantly having to mentor in new teachers is significant. And so that financial stipend, but then we have once a month, 90-minute online cohort of mentor teachers across the state that meets all year. And so those veteran teachers being able to come together and share their problems of practice and how the different issues of having to, in the induction of new teachers into the profession is a challenge for our veteran teachers, and in the teacher shortage, they're having to do this with year after year or sometimes multiple mentees while they're managing their own coursework without the time. So one of the things we're also active in the legislative process and advocacy for a differentiated career ladder that would honor veteran teachers and new teachers with the time to actually prepare and meet. Currently the teacher job description is the same, whether you're a first-year teacher or a 30-year teacher. And if we could actually honor our mentor teachers with the time to mentor our new teachers, and our new teachers with a little bit of time, one less class, one less prep duty, to have a little bit of that time to meet with each other and learn and grow. So so we have the financial supports, we have the advocacy supports, and then we have a lot of mentoring and advising. So again, just the advising to get through all those.
So kind of answered it, you kind of touched on it. Oh, so it's on you.
Time obviously is a theme for all of you. And protected time, I think, is a challenge for a lot of us. We want to do these things, but how do we work this time thing out? We don't have more time to give. And like you said, it just seems like we keep adding things on as opposed to cutting them off. So I would love to hear, and anybody can answer, like how you overcame that challenge. Like what are some of the things you did to overcome just the barriers of time, like where to put it, how to move it around. Some things you just had to sacrifice altogether. Like if that was the case, like what is that experience for you? What's like?
I think in our university programs, really looking at our course curriculum and materials and making sure we aren't duplicating. Like, do not ask them to do this again. So trying to align practices. So if in the residency project, if they're asked to set goals as a new teacher because state law requires it, and they're asked to set goals for the university for student teaching, let's make them the same goals. Like, I don't care what form you use for the university. If you get a form for the school district, use that. So just recognizing where we have redundancies and don't make them do it again.
Yeah.
No pressure,
Sorry,
because time out of our hands, so.
No, exactly. I mean, I wish we could make each day 28 hours long, or, only require 4 hours of sleep per person a night. Because I think it's a challenge no matter how you cut it. And I like what Flynn was saying about sort of like removing the redundancies. And I don't really have a good answer for it, to be honest. So
Removing redundancies should be.
yeah.
Okay.
I think I'll just add that I was only hesitating because it really, I got this idea from somebody else, but having these unique spaces in a meeting, I think is really important. So allowing people to decompress is actually, when you don't do that, even though you'd be like, we don't have time to do a decompression, like you will save time because people will actually have gotten it out. I also think we have put a heavy priority and have really fought to keep it on doing social emotional learning for the adults, which I can tell these two programs do. So we're doing it built into our professional development calendar. And sure, you can look at it as like, I can't put that investment in my school. But we have just been trying to gradually beat the drum every year that schools need this time, because if you have more self-aware educators about what they're going through, and they get some support and skill building on those competencies, then they're going to be more capable of taking on new challenges or staying in the work. And so you ultimately save time, even though upfront it feels like a big time commitment when you have so many other competing challenges. But every like really high quality educator training I've ever done, they almost always start with some type of self-reflection. So I just started, and we in our partnership with Tree Street Youth, which is a huge part of this because one of their principles is social emotional first. It's not above academics, but it's your entry point into it. I credit that staff for really launching that with us.
I'm a little biased to the social emotional learning for adults. Kind of the thing that I love most about Maine is that we've picked that up and we actually try to emphasize the fact that this should be a priority. I'm curious to know, with that protected time and making that a priority, what do you do with pushback, or where does the pushback come from for you all, if at all? Or you could be the one that says, I'm doing it, and your authorities say, great, go with it. But if not, like, how do you handle that? And what's that been like?
I recently was making this point that for those that plan for those that plan our professional development in our district, we should also be planning some facilitation professional development to those who facilitate it, because I think it's an art that gets perfected over time. And so one way to push it back is like, okay, if we don't have time for this, good facilitation can still carve out time within the session. So Lewiston uses a framework for teaching literacy and supporting multilingual learners called SIAP. There's a lot of great stuff in that. When you start your training on that, you can still provide space for feelings acknowledgement or helping them visualize where they're gonna land at the end of this training, or pause midway through the training and be like, do people need a water break? Like literally just simple stuff. And so many facilitators feel like they are just driven by those bullet points on the slides and like the content that they gotta cover. But I've seen so many other great facilitators, and they always find the stuff they need to really emphasize, the stuff they need to sort of get through more quickly. So that's been one of mine. It's like, okay, if you can't give us a training just on this, can't give us an hour on this, then like, let's coach up our facilitators to be a little bit more sort of human-centered as they facilitate.
Responding to feedback, pushback around SEL, you look at the data and the research results and the neuropsychology that plowing through drill and kill doesn't get you results. And so the neuropsychology said building this community, building belonging creates the receptiveness to learning. And if you aren't doing that and teaching the adolescent, if they don't belong, they're checked out.
There you go. She
So
said it.
they'll tell you right in your face.
Like the kids checked out because you were not checked in. Okay. Well, thank you. That was extra. But I did have I've got a list of questions and I sent them. So I thank you for indulging me for the extra. But I want to bring it to, we talked about the processes and making it clear for folks, and transparency around hiring, promotion, what it looks like to exceed or succeed in their jobs. And we could start with you because I know, Philip, because I know that this is something that you've specifically been focused on. So what does it look like with the transparency of process? How did you bring transparency and calibration into the hiring and promotion of your staff?
I still think I'm trying to improve on it because I think the nature of public school districts and the way the contracts work, like it's just there aren't just like your general promotion, like you're a great
Right.
teacher. Like here's the thing, and the reality is there are so many positions to go around, things like that. So what I've tried to slowly do is through the end of the year check-ins, like already be naming to people the types of things they should pursue so that when opportunities open up, they're ready. So I've got a group of people right now, I'm actively coaching on how to work towards their administrator certification because something might pop up one day and, you know, rather than only look around towards people outside of our district or, people that maybe come from more traditional backgrounds solely. People will be ready to jump at the chance. And some of these conditional certifications actually make it pretty eligible for you to get something even before you fully completed a program or done all the steps. And while I don't fully understand all the DOE's
That's not me. I'm not in that area.
I'm very intrigued by it, but if it's done well, I mean, that has a real opportunity to, like, I've started to think like, ooh, if I can learn that system well, can my professional development and the products that they produce in my professional development actually count towards their administrator certification? On the more entry level jobs, like my ed techs, I really try to treat them as teachers as much as I can. Have them in the classrooms, encourage folks to give them like a mini part of the lesson at minimum to practice. And then my coaching cycles with them, like very much mirror the teaching coaching cycles. So I'm trying to always tell people like, you should not be in the job you're in right now forever. You should be thinking about what's the next certification or the next step for you. And then the other piece of transparency is that school policy is very onerous. I think the document is like 800 pages, and you're supposed to like read it and sign it. And like
In 2 minutes.
yeah, like you fully got it, and that's no shade on the policies. But I feel like I've taken some L's, as the kids say, of like not adequately telling people this is a school policy, you can't cross that line. And so I actually started to build that stuff into my beginning of the year professional. Like, here's a school policy, it exists, you've already agreed to it, you should know what's in it. And so I think kind of whatever background you come from, you don't necessarily have that level of detail. But I think that's another really important one to be transparent on. So I can talk, those are my big ones right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I agree. Like when I think about those long contracts, the agreements that we just click so we can just get our phone set up or whatever, and we have no idea. It's a little bit different when you're talking about policy, and trying to be innovative in the classroom and then having to have that conversation of, yeah, it was in there. So thank you for that. How about you guys?
This is an interesting question for TLS, just because we're really like, we employ teaching professionals who are really, this is really a launching pad for them to go into a career in education. So like I said, the TLS model changed in the 2020-2021 school year. And since then, we've had about 45 fellows kind of come through and complete the program. And nearly all of them are still working in schools or outdoor ed programs or other nonprofit organizations, and about 20% of them matriculated directly into Maine public schools. And I think that's sort of the transparency is really helping our fellows like look at the end game, right? So the fellowship is not set up to be a career. It's really sort of like a short-term skill building experience where we support them as they grow as educators to then move on to the next thing, right? And I think one of the goals of TLS as we sort of reimagined it and replanned it and repurposed it is to really sort of help address the teacher shortage in Maine, and to give these young, dynamic, energetic individuals who are really passionate about working with kids the tools to be really successful in a traditional classroom or a non-traditional classroom, depending on where they end up. And so I think that's sort of like the transparency is just helping them sort of understand what their goals are through the program itself, but then also like what their career goals are beyond KWE and TLS. And then continue to work with them through this program. Because I know the way we have it set up now, ideally, it's sort of like a 3-year rotation, just because it's different. Because we changed things over even since the pandemic, there's people who are they're probably in like their 4th year now as a fellow, and it is kind of getting stale from them, and it does sort of feel like it's sort of time for them to take the next step. and sort of like having those, I don't want to say difficult conversations with them, but also just sort of level setting with them and being like, are you still here for the right reasons? They're doing a great job with what they're doing, but like, do they necessarily have the right attitude about serving in this role, continuing to serve in this role? So just making sure that they're sort of like progressing at the rate that we would hope them to be, or they should be hoping themselves to be progressing. So
Do you find that you get folks that feel content where they are and are okay to stay in that space? And what does that look like for you to kind of coach them ahead, I guess?
totally. I mean, for a lot of these people, they're doing the work that they like to do. And there's a comfort level that they build, especially because of sort of the circumstances of their employment, where they don't have to worry about writing a rent check, right? And they know that they're going to be earning, a paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's going to happen no matter what. And so I'm still new to my position at TLS. I just started at the end of August. So I didn't necessarily have had to have those difficult conversations with the fellows who maybe it's time to move on. And I think sort of helping them understand that once you get to a point where you've perfected that role, it's time to move on, right? Because there is no real professional challenge there anymore. Or I guess
I'm like, is it time to move on?
yeah. No, I know. I caught myself as I was saying that, because like, well, actually, like every week it's a new group of students, and actually every group of students is a new challenge. So there certainly are professional challenges, and there are organizations out there that we can kind of steer them towards where they can do that work, and make space for other potential fellows who can move into our program and access all of the resources that we have. So
I just think about preparing. So as an educator, it's already a hard job. And so I'm thinking of the folks who are just like, I'm good right here. I don't need to be in leadership, or I don't need to see if I can teach peer teaching or whatever, because it's already good enough. Like, is it good enough? And do we get stagnant in that? I'm not in the classroom, so I'm just thinking about like some of those challenges of being an educator now, and what makes you stay and feel, I guess, fulfilled in your job, and knowing that there may be fulfillment in leadership or in supporting others and mentorship, and not really understanding that that's somewhere over the rainbow is still good here in the educated profession. So anyway, so what about, go ahead.
Because that got me thinking too about sort of having the conversations about the optimal challenge, right? Like if the curriculum has become so ingrained in your soul that like you're not necessarily having to think very thoughtfully about how you're presenting something to a student, is that the optimal challenge anymore? Like, do you actually grow from that work anymore, even if it's each week? So I think that's a good way to frame it for people too. Like, is this still the optimal challenge for you?
Good question.
Too hard or too easy?
Before we go to you, Dr. Flynn, I see Caitlin has her hand up, and I want to make sure she gets space to speak because y'all can't see her.
I don't know if you can hear me either. Can you hear me?
Oh, it's me.
Yep.
Can you
Dana.
hear me?
Dana Tech.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
how about now, Caitlin? Did I do it?
What about now?
No.
I don't know if it's like my computer. Is it me? Like
I
the
didn't
people
do
on
it.
Zoom can hear me, but she can't hear me there, is what it sounds like.
What you got?
Yeah, I'll put it
Caitlin?
in the chat.
I still can't
Yeah.
hear her.
It looks like that's on her side. She's not green.
Oh,
Yeah, how? I think she has to make me green.
if it's easier to type it in, you can do that.
I do.
But we
Shoot.
still want to hear you.
The green outline tells you if their mic is working or not. It looks
Yeah.
like hers was not.
Please adjust your mic, Caitlin. We'll wait for you. Dr. Flynn, go ahead.
Talking about structural systems around retention.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And definitely encourage administrators to take a look at their procedures for retention, teacher evaluation. We've been doing this at the university to make it less about the ivory tower peer-reviewed journals, more about community involvement and recognition of
Nice.
building community connections. In schools, I work with the school to look at their Danielson framework for evaluation and move it from teacher-directed instruction to student-centered instruction. Because a lot of these models of what teacher evaluation are fairly traditional teacher-directed, where a lot of the movement is to much more student-centered. So we need to change the evaluation tools to reflect that. And helping new teachers understand and advocate for themselves. So understanding what the certification requirements are, understanding what those standards for teaching or your evaluation are, and being able to advocate for yourself within those standards. We pretty stereotypically see young women themselves. They wait to be recognized, and helping build leadership school skills, particularly in young women, to advocate for themselves is often needed.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, I don't think, especially when we're in a teacher shortage, and we need everyone who's really good at this job to come out of the woodwork and work for it, to say like it's entirely on the employee to navigate this, I think is crazy. And like that's one of the best ways that you can show that you want to keep them. Like, let me help you figure this out. In a different economic market where teachers are paid so well and the competition is fierce, yeah, sure, we could be like, it's on you to be certified, but that's not the situation we're in. We got to convince people that this is a career they want to charge into. So I very much think like, and I think school departments, this is not something I can be actionable on, but if school departments could even have like marketing people who really try to get this story and narrative out.
Or don't put it on the 200 school departments. I think that the Department of Education.
Well, I was gonna say, that's one thing that we are doing is taking over, telling good stories. That's one of our priorities, to make sure that, so I raise my hand because I'm the person that usually, when no one has time for it, I go out, I find out what's going on at your school, and I either write about it, talk to someone who is going to write about it, or talk to somebody in one of the offices within the department that can actually do something or promote it or encourage it. So, but yeah.
Also about job openings. So a statewide data system that's shared, these are the openings, and can actually match people who are certified with those openings that exist and help people promote. Yeah. This is an opening that you're interested in.
Right, and be more personal.
There are data systems in other states that do that.
Teach Maine is partnered with Educate Maine. Look at me being the spokesperson. Who's working toward this? For some reason, Maine is just a little bit slower than others, but I think it's a gift and a curse, right? Because of our ruralness, because of all the freedom and fresh air and all that kind of stuff, technology, and having a whole bunch of repetitive instances where this bad thing is happening, and so we need to change it. Like I said, it's a balance, and so this is why we have this panel, to bring up and promote the things that we need to focus on. And y'all's turns is coming up next to make sure that you are taking in all of this information to make you a plan that's impactful. I thought I had Caitlin. There you go. Hold on. I think I'm already open. So Caitlin, I'm not even going to touch anything. Caitlin Snyder, you go ahead and say hello.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I still need to do it? Golly. How about now? Okay, now we're good. Hi.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
Okay,
Sorry
yay.
about that.
No, I came back from TLS with my class 2 weeks ago,
Hey.
and I had such a fantastic time while I was there with my students. And the program that they have, this was my 3rd year going there, and their new director, Will, was just phenomenal, helping us with our students navigating just some of the like homesickness and other things that go on, and their program's been great working with my rural community to make it affordable to have those experiences for our students. And so multiple things came to mind as I was talking to educators there. I'm about to enter a new principalship in a school that has many long-term subs for positions they're unable to fill. And the teachers there were talking about how they are in teacher training programs with hopes of becoming educators. And so just if there was a partnership pipeline through their program with other schools, it would be an incredible way to get these amazing educators into a next step program for them as they go through. In addition to that, offering some sort of teacher program where as a school leader, we could bring our staff to their program to have the SEL level at their level to then bring that back into the classroom would be an incredible opportunity. So that was what I wanted to share. Thank you for the space.
Thank you, Caitlin. And please, now that I'm not going to touch it, it's working. I'm just going to leave my computer alone so we don't have that problem anymore. But I think that's a good segue into just talking about mentorship, because when you said that bringing people to witness those programs, et cetera, I think that's the piece that, by the way, I am also taking notes and learning from our panel. And so this is a very active conversation. But one of the things that for me, that I think we are lacking is impactful and effective mentorship programming across the state. Some people are doing it well. Some people are not doing it. Some people are trying, and some people are like, whatever. Or some folks are just they just don't have the resources to do the mentorship. I think I remember in one of our Educate Maine focus groups talking to a music teacher who had a mentor that was, I think, a history teacher, and they made it work, but we can do it better. Hey, Christopher.
Hey there. I was just thinking about that. I'm gonna lose my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
Don't do that.
Oh crap! It was a good one.
Well, Chris,
I'll come back.
I was about to say, we're going to talk to the panel about mentorship, and so
that's it. That's it.
I knew it was there.
If you're looking for another example of an educationally based organization that does a very good and effective mentorship program, believe it or not, the MIAAA, which is the Maine Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, for all first year and second year athletic directors, they provide a mentorship where they pair you up with someone who is a seasoned veteran to be able to take care of a lot of the questions that will come up eventually. But they have a really nice model with a curriculum and the whole nine. It was a very, very nice program that we had involved, and that's just a really good resource. Obviously, it's different because you're not dealing with that curriculum base or that that knowledge base, because you're talking about running of an athletic program.
Right.
But if you're talking about creating a mentorship and how to troubleshoot these sort of programs, it's a great program as a start off.
Well, Chris, drop that in the chat because I'm collecting all resources. And because we're in such a beautiful state that has a lot of unique instances, doing it differently and doing it and modeling is what we rely on, which is why I'm going to ask this question on mentorship and what's working. What makes mentorship by design work in your settings, protected time, all of that stuff? And what evidence told you that it mattered when we talk about mentorship? And anybody can take that because I think you all have experience with that mentorship. Okay, I'm done.
I think this kind of answers that question, but what that comment just brought up for me is, so an athletic director, their job and that mentorship, I bet, is highly tailored to what helps you lead in that role. And a big challenge is a lot of folks who are really good at teaching students then get moved into positions where primarily they're teaching adults. And so we have to, through the mentorship, actually give, if we want to have people be school leaders, like we have to give them opportunities to teach adults, get feedback on that, I think organizational management is a huge one, so we need to provide mentorship around how to manage, multiple systems and data analysis, those things. And I will say that I have been flat out bad at that type of mentorship, like recognizing that those are the skills that I had to sort of cut my teeth on, like getting an admin job with virtually no training, just the opportunity. And it is kind of like, that's just the way it is. Like people are expected to like just sink or swim. But if we pause long enough, we can realize like what you actually need to be successful. So I would not claim this is working yet because I have not done it yet, but I'm motivated to because I've been thinking about, even if you just think about replacing yourself in your own role, you all of a sudden sort of have that moment where you're like, could someone do what I do? And you get over the ego, like, yes, they could, but then how are you going to tell them how to do that? How are you going to support them? And you could have really great higher ed courses. There's still so much that's art and skill developed with practice. So I think mentorship programs that really know what skills they're helping people build, like, are the most successful. Just having an older, a veteran person tell you how they did it doesn't, or how they, a sounding board doesn't necessarily get you there. You need to have an actual model for the skills that someone needs to get ahead.
I'm curious, and y'all can keep going, but just on that piece of who would name or who would identify those skills? Like I'm thinking about a mentor, a teacher who's just been doing it for a while and may not know how come they're so fabulous in the classroom. Are we expecting, like, do they know, or do we give them like training on how to know what's great and what they're doing great before we get into telling them to tell somebody else to do it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, the early training that I did do as a new administrator was on calibrating your observations with other evaluators. And that was pretty helpful for starting to think about what you needed to know in order to be able to support your teachers on. So that's one, but I think it is flat out like giving people the time to reflect on what they're good at, what's needed to be successful in the role. Again, and we see this, I think we see this in industries across America, like you're good at a job, so you get a bigger job. That doesn't necessarily mean you're better at the bigger job. And most people, the first time they get that bigger job, they're a hot mess for at least a couple years. And hopefully they stick it out long enough, myself included, so. Thank you.
I have some comments.
Like, I do think that's where higher ed can help in giving those structures and frameworks. And so how does a mentor teacher know what are the elements of teaching are and give name to those? That's something teacher educators at higher ed have been doing for years. And so being able to name, quantify, and create the rubrics to help guide that practice is what we're immersed in doing, and there is some place for expertise.
I'm like, can I indulge and ask, like, what are some of the places where we start these mentorship programs that we're leaving out, like organizational skills, like that huge gap? Are there any that you're seeing that you're working with the program on?
Sorry, I missed part of that.
So are there some actual tangible skills that we need, that we're missing? So when we start a mentorship program, we think, okay, cool. Is there any structure that we can give to those programs, or things that we're missing? Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
A little different mentoring new teachers and mentoring administrators. As you're saying, that mentoring administrators, talking about organizational structures, mentoring teachers, the Maine teaching standards is part of the INTAS, the national standards for new teachers, understanding all the dimensions. How do I know my students, their differences, the classroom management, the planning, the assessment, the professional relationships, and all of these pieces that are broken down much more nuanced. So I've often seen teachers like with one piece. This one's great at classroom management, I have no idea about assessment. This one's great with science background, has some great data management tools for assessment, but really struggles with the relationship with the kids. And so when you've got these frameworks that you worked with for so long, you can start to add names and then all the resources behind those names to support people as they're emerging. Because we have, let me take the standard, community standard for 11 now. You can end up with any combination of
Right,
any individual.
I actually want to edit something I said a second ago where
Okay.
I think I was saying teaching students is very different than teaching adults, different skill set. I actually want to edit and say, like, I actually think it's quite similar, but there's something that happens to people who are really comfortable in the classroom with kids. They go in front of adults and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, people freeze up, and it, myself included. I'll never forget the first day I addressed all staff. I was like, holy crap, everyone's looking at me to have the answers all of a sudden. So I think one of the ways I try to improve is like remembering, like, they also have to learn. There's also an approach and a strategy to helping people learn.
Yeah.
That is true whether you got a very advanced brain or a very developing brain. So it also is just that's where maybe those shout outs piece can help, like giving people the opportunity and then giving them praise for just trying it and learning from that experience. So opportunities and encouragement, I think, could also be key pieces of mentorship as well.
So just want to, like, I think the formal mentorship relationship is really, really important. And I think sometimes we overlook sort of like the informal, almost like partnership rather than mentorship, and just providing the time and space for new faculty and experienced faculty to be able to just like observe their colleagues in the work that they're doing and offer feedback. And you know what, a new teacher can certainly give valuable feedback to a really experienced teacher and vice versa. And it doesn't always have to be like this really sort of like formulaic, formal relationship for it to be a really valuable mentorship experience, or like to parallel a mentorship experience. So I think we do that a lot with our fellows in that, especially at the beginning of the year, we have them co-teach a lot. And a lot of times what that co-teaching looks like is one person's really just observing and taking note of what they're seeing, and then basically just offering feedback about what they really liked, what they think they might do differently, and just things along those lines where it's, you know, I think that formal relationship is really, really important and necessary. And I think it sometimes gets, I want to say prioritized, but I think sometimes you can lose sight of how important just that sort of like collegial interaction with your peers can be to help you grow in your own practice.
And a foundation of that is SEL. That if you don't have that
100%.
trust,
Right.
and that openness to
Yes.
hearing feedback,
Right.
you're going nowhere.
Right.
And so part of Caitlin's question, can we get some SEL training for adults?
Yeah.
Is, definitely needed.
Because, and thank you for bringing that back up, because that is one of the ideas that I had for TLS. I probably shouldn't be saying it out loud just yet. Is to really offer like workshops for our visiting teachers that come with their schools in the fall and the spring, and really like do professional development with the faculty while they're there, so that they're not just sort of like sitting on the sidelines the entire time and watching it all happen. You certainly learn by osmosis through doing that, and sort of like watching our young dynamic teaching professionals lead groups in these activities and exercises. And if we sort of like sit down with the visiting teachers and kind of walk through like why we do our curriculum the way we do it, and why we think it's so important, and why I believe that like the foundational SEL skills that our fellows are building is really gonna help them in the long run as education professionals, and really help them like retain their positions and not experience that burnout, because they're centered in social emotional learning, where they understand that like building relationships with their students is not secondary to the content, right? Where like their students will be able to access the content better when they can build the positive relationships with their students that are in their classrooms. So,
And the need for that program to be structured and guided, because the apprenticeship of observation does not mean that you're then an expert.
No.
Yep.
The 12-year apprenticeship.
Say that part again.
Does not mean you can then teach.
Yeah, right.
The apprenticeship of being in the hospital doesn't mean you're then a doctor.
100%.
So the apprenticeship of watching somebody else lead that team building doesn't
Yep.
mean that you understand what right? So an expert lens in helping observe
Yep.
is really needed. That's what teaching is. That's why we're all here.
Really?
And I wonder, like, Caitlin's other question was about long-term subs.
Yes, you mentioned. Yeah.
So I definitely advocate with, at USM here now, we have a certificate of graduate studies for those with post-baccalaureate. That provide 4 courses required for a conditional certification that will then transfer right into our graduate master's program, the ETAP program. And so that's the way we are capturing this career ladder for lots of people who come late to deciding they want to be teachers. So you can get in on this 4-course certificate that will then transfer into a master's and student teacher certificate.
And while we're on the topic of Caitlin, I fully agree that Will Hackett is an amazing educator. We're so lucky to have him back at TLS. So his role is Associate Director of School Partnerships and Programs. And so he's the director that's most responsible for the experience that students and visiting teachers have while they're on our campus. He's amazing. And one of the reasons why I was really excited to come participate in this panel today is just to keep getting the word out about TLS. And so we can create those pipelines for our fellows to go into the schools and be matched with the schools that are in the greatest need and that have the most opportunity for our fellows. So thank you for bringing that up.
And his mentor teacher at Lincoln Academy is now a Teacher of the Year. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I know who that. So anyway, I'm a very excitable presenter. I get excited about information. Okay, so Caitlin says, agreed. Often just having protocols for peer feedback and reviews would be beneficial. In my experience, people, especially teachers, are very defensive when they feel like they might get caught making a mistake, which means teachers will benefit from SEL development too. That will hopefully help build relationships with each other and create an environment for learning too. And I read that out. I know we talked about it, but it needs to be emphasized. That would help a lot. Adult SEL and being okay, because we have, as grownups, just inherent authority over ourselves and to make those decisions. If we have a blind spot, it impacts more than just ourselves, it impacts everyone. And so not knowing who you are, how you engage with the rest of the world and how you make good decisions, et cetera. We can go through the 5 CASTLE competencies, but again, super important. And I think we should follow that up with the mentorship to just say adult social emotional learning starts with mentoring yourself. And so I think I have a little bit more time and I want to open it up to questions, but I feel like there are 2 in the room and a few online. So the questions will be quick for you all. So I got a little bit more time for myself. And so I have a question about some more barriers and adjustments that you've made. And then we can end it with giving us your one final nugget. But so Liz, can you come off before I ask this question? I want to give space because we can. Look at me, I did it. Liz, go ahead and speak your piece. Because we can hear you now. Where'd you go? See, now I was ready and Liz wasn't ready. Not my fault. Okay, well, Liz, if you have something, please come off mic or raise your hand. We're here to listen, but I wanted to ask about some barriers this year with your programming, any program or project that you are engaged with this topic of empowering, retaining, and supporting your staff for diversity. What's one challenge you've had this year and something that you're doing or you have done to adjust? Can we start with you over there?
I mean, the biggest barrier for us is.
Go ahead.
The biggest barrier for us is funding. TLS runs at about a $3 million deficit every year. And we are sort of underwritten by our non-TLS revenue as an organization. So we're fortunate that we have really successful summer camps and other programs that allow us to provide this really meaningful program. But we're aware of the fact that like that bottom could fall out at any time, and then that has drastic implications for how we run the TLS program. So really, like, we're mindful of like where can we get the support to make this a long-term sustainable program? Who do we need to talk to like support the funding necessary to continue the programming, which has been really successful and is really dynamic and powerful in the long term. You know, our summer camps are near and dear to my heart. I worked at Camp Kiev as a counselor. It's sort of how I learned about the organization. My daughter is now a Wavis camper. And you know, if all of a sudden those tuition dollars start to dry up, then that means that TLS can't run the way that we want to run it. So, you know, meeting people at the DOE who we can talk to, who we can sort of like pitch why this program is so impactful and meaningful is really important to us. And, you know, private philanthropy is really important. And it's like it's a big number to endow TLS as a program in perpetuity. So we're not holding on hope for basically holding the winning Powerball ticket. Be able to sort of like make small steps and small gains and keep talking to more people about how they can support our organization as we support creating educators, public educators for Maine.
Seems like expanding your community and your network. That's how, okay.
We very much believe in design for people and also have the most impacted voices lead creation. And so trying to, a barrier is just like, who makes these decisions? People, you know, and this isn't to knock on anybody, but people with sort of institutional privilege or these, you know, they got to a spot, like the traditional system supported them there. It's no shade to them, but they're proximate to the issues on the ground anymore. So I think we're just trying to sort of push more, getting people have different experiences in those committees or PD committees. I don't think I'm doing it that successfully yet, but that can go a long way if you just sort of, if you get different stakeholders at the table. Because I know a big part of burnout is people just feel like the organization doesn't represent them. And so maybe I don't want boss, maybe I don't want kids, or maybe I don't know the school, but just the frustrations with the largeness of the system really bog people down. And I find a lot of folks from non-traditional backgrounds who are even looking at education in the first place are doing it because they want to make a positive change. So we need them at the table for positive change. So if you have any level of sway over who's at a policy committee or who's on a, you know, not even a leadership team at a school, but like a decision-making body that addresses things on a cyclical basis, like figure out who's got a different perspective on those things and try to get them at the table, because that might go a long way in you retaining this, supporting and retaining this workforce that doesn't feel seen or have a sense of belonging in your institution.
Thank you.
Add to that, it's not just get to the table, but it's also changed the way that table operates so that they're
Say that, Doc.
heard. Because sometimes we bring people to the table and then we still ignore them.
Yep. Or that table just spins on an issue forever and never does anything. It's never happened before, actually.
No comments.
Yeah, we've all served on barriers. The Maine teacher residency was funded with a U.S. congressionally designated spending of nearly $1 million 3 years ago. So that funding is now done. We've supported 120 residents and their mentors with those funds. Last year we were funded for $200,000 from the Maine state legislature, which is providing the final 20 residents this year and their mentors. But then our funding is done and the program will not exist going forward unless their Education and Cultural Affairs Committee did approve the bill to fund the residency going forward, but appropriations did not. So there needs to be funding, or places like Educate Maine and Teach Maine. I don't need to run the thing. I would be glad to have the residency
Definitely.
go on and have it funded and coordinated. I think it needs to be at the state level, possibly the DOE.
Noted. I was gonna ask, is that, so was one of the, I guess, adjustments is saying, okay, if it's not in my institution, just as long as it's somewhere.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Other states are doing it. Big, Arizona.
Question for you after this,
Washington.
Dr. Flynn, for real.
Other states are doing
Mhm.
this at the state legislation and State Department of Ed. It should not be at a university.
I have a question about that too. Do you think it has anything to do with local control and not really having, like, there is no reins to grab, because there's so many reins to grab, maybe?
The challenge of Maine having, so
Gifted and
much.
cursed, I love local control.
And the funding.
Yeah.
Other residency programs, Chicago, Boston, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, school districts have to invest in their future workforce. And so they commit to preparing their future teachers because they know they're gonna have 100 teacher openings. That size of hiring does not exist in Maine at a district level, it exists at a state level. So we know we will hire over 100 new teachers at the state level, but no single district can invest in that because of size and economics. So at that scale, we need to do it at the state level.
To that end, like, where are those 100 new teachers gonna come from as well?
Yeah.
That's sort of like,
Here.
exactly, and like why I think our program is so important, and like, we know that our model is scalable and can be adapted by all sorts of different youth serving nonprofit organizations across the state. We'd be more than happy to speak with any of them or partner with any of them. You know, there's summer camps across this state and are adjacent to.
Counselors a summer.
Exactly.
10,000, if we captured 1% of that.
Yep.
We can address the teacher shortage.
Who have the experience of working with kids and know full well whether or not they love it or they hate it, because they've lived with those kids for an entire summer, and probably have the passion and the wherewithal to sort of like go through this type of program.
So probably 50% of my staff has worked at a summer camp, seeds a piece, a lot of them. And I think what captures that, and why a lot of folks who work for us have also formerly worked at Tree Street, they understand positive youth development. And I don't know why that doesn't feel like it's coming up the ranks from just traditional backgrounds, but that is why I think the camp counselors so often make great teachers, because they instinctually know the principles of positive youth development. And if we got more positive youth development in schools, even if we like have partnerships like with TLS working, I mean, that's one way to get positive youth development in schools, partnership, but then also helping those folks then transition into a career in teaching. Now you've merged those skills, which can be hard to be taught, with this more technical expertise that I think higher ed and a lot of education schools can provide. So yeah, I cherry pick people from summer camps every time I can.
Listen, I'm a camp kid and a camp counselor and a camp director. I think it is a pathway that we are. I want to give a shout out to Diane Dworin and Christina O'Neill from the Office of Higher Ed Educator Support. See this, they are working toward these things. And as much as we're short in our schools and districts, apparently with the 200 plus people we have at the department, we still have really small teams that are doing these really big changes. So shout out to y'all. So my last thing before is to ask if you have questions, or if y'all have questions. I know we've been engaging throughout, and so that's why I kind of extended it a little bit, but I want to open up the floor to the participants in the audience to ask any questions, any final questions to our panel before we take a break. I'm gonna call y'all Kylie, Libby. Oh, wait. Libby, Megan. I see you, Zoe, Val, Autumn. Chris, you've been an outstanding participant, so I won't call you out. Caitlin, you as well. And nothing in the chat. We obviously, like I said, we are not using that Mentimeter. Don't even look at it. So if none from you all, my final question is a popcorn of, y'all take your time, but don't take too much. One transfer-ready action step. All the, dag nabbit. After all that we've talked about, one transfer-ready action step that participants in this room, in the Zoom and in the room can take right now, that they can try this month as leaders trying to support their staff, creating spaces that support staff where they don't already exist. So I'll start over here with a plan.
Administrators and teachers reach out if about to higher ed about how to get your people certified and how to create that career ladder. Promote and retain the people you've got.
Just to make that practical, like someone like me calls up USM and it's just like, I'm looking to.
You'll probably end up in my inbox.
Okay.
So you could reach out to me.
Okay. I do have your email. So.
Well, there you go.
I think for me, it's like, I threw out a bunch of things that I don't think are super difficult to implement or hard, but the one, if I can just highlight one, because I'm sure people have a zillion things spinning in their heads, it would be to provide space for decompression and also shout outs. If you do those two things, people will start to feel like you care about them as humans.
Nice, thank you.
And our program is so unique. It's hard to sort of think about transferable skills, but I think if there's one takeaway, the work that we do at TLS is so centered and grounded in social emotional learning. And I really appreciate the points towards like helping educators and faculty members build their own SEL capacity so that they can then provide the time and the space to build that capacity within their own students. There's all free resources out there. Call us up at TLS. We'll help walk you through all sorts of different things as well. I think that is like the one sort of like best next step to take.
Awesome.
Be focusing on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, touch on that a little bit. My recent book around decolonizing classroom management and understanding that SEL has come from a white middle class educated tradition and being really reflective on what we mean by SEL. There are critiques of it that it can be white supremacy with a hug. And so, which is,
I heard that one in a while. Yeah, man.
So being careful about what we mean by social emotional learning and being open to many ways that emotions can be expressed, children being asked and then emotions, and they're like, my emotions are not allowed in this classroom, and they don't want to hear what I want to say. And so just being careful the way that SEL is framed and being self-reflective in that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for adding that, Flynn, because I think that's really, really important. And beyond sort of that multicultural lens, there's also like the political lens of SEL and how like fraught it can be to think about and talk about that stuff. Is one of the ways I started talking about it with other education professionals and people outside of our field of work. Is it's really like what it boils down to is their interpersonal and intrapersonal skills. And that's sort of like a way less charged way to think about it and talk about it. Because ultimately that's what it is, right?
Thank you. I was going to say, that's why adult SEL is important, because in adult SEL, we get to that part so that we don't become white supremacy with a hug in the classroom. So thank you for that. So I think that I want to keep you all forever, because like I said, I was learning so much from you, and I wanted to make sure that I brought it into a space where other educators can participate in this discussion. But we're going to sign off. I want to thank you on behalf of, like I said, myself, but I'm sure of our participants. And we're going to let you go now. We're going to take a 5-minute break for in the room and in the Zoom so we can have some transition time. And kudos to our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisha.
I wish we could clap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm doing
clap
clap.
in the room. Yep, snaps is happening. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna sign off for a few. I am sharing the screen. I was gonna share it. That's for y'all. Okay. All This. We're having fun in the room, but I want to go ahead and utilize this last 30 minutes so that we can leave with some things that we can do next week. So welcome back. Okay. I'm opening the floor right now before we jump back in. Thumbs up if you're there. And if I don't see the thumbs, I'll give us a couple of more minutes before I jump in. Although you're missing all the fun. Okay. No thumbs up. We might still need some time. So what'd y'all think about the presentation? Our panel? Was it insightful? I got a lot of notes. Y'all think I'm like, I am facilitating and also learning. Oh, I don't want to start without y'all, but I'm gonna jump back in. Oh, hey, Zoe. All right. So again, I want to open up for any thoughts or ideas resonating with you following the break that you may want to share now. So I know it was a lot of talking and listening. And I want to make sure that you have time to talk about what you heard. No?
Something that is shocking to me was when you mentioned teacher burnout also being just not feeling welcomed and not feeling needed. Never thought about it in that sense. And I just thought it was just like too much work that made them feel like they didn't want to give up.
Thank you. That I noticed that too. So that stood out to me. She said teacher burnout being connected to belonging wasn't something she thought about before, and that resonated with me as well. Like, and then thinking about our own experiences, the work is lighter when you're having fun. I realized, like, when I went to, even for this, it's really stressful, but we were all working together and we all felt like we had each other's back, and it definitely makes it feel different. I would be so burned out creating all of these materials. I'm a person who is a team of one amongst our department, and it does feel like a lonely island at times. But I would say, just my personal experience with engagement, the engagement series, we had each other's back, and there was a lot of times I said F this, and excuse my language, but this sucks. And I had a lot of conversations in my head by myself, but there was always someone on our Teams chat virtually that I could say, hey, are you confused about this too? Or what do we need to do? And it definitely got me to this point. So as I'm at this is our first one. It was an adventure, but it was an adventure that if you were doing it alone, I could see a lot of people quitting after this. So anyway, so for the next segment, speaking of which, we all have we've heard what we've heard. For this section, the section of the session, we'll work together to create our own practice snapshot and talk about take our thoughts and our ideas one step further before we head back to our schools, SAUs, programs. So we're going to take some time to write at least one practice. You'll implement this coming week. Keep it small, keep it and specific. Examples, scheduling a protected 30 minutes mentorship check-in and mentee, like reaching out to your mentor and asking for that 30-minute protected time. I would love to reach out to Philip and ask him for his rubric. That's something that I said I was going to do when he said with all the busy things going on and everything is busy, that when you get back to the next point, when you talked about what you talked about, he had a snapshot of what they covered and what they should be covering. And it's something that's so simple, but I don't do that right now. And so anyway, so I created a implementation sheet. It should be in the links, something to refer to. I have it printed out for folks here, but again, these links are accessible to you. You can follow along with the sheet. You can print it out for later. You can use it with your teams or your staff or whoever you work with. And you can take it and make and scribble the other one down later and crumple it up, and now you have another sheet. So it's only for you can do this without this sheet, but it's only for our benefit to make sure that we're staying focused on what exactly we're leaving here with. And so you have one practice that you'll implement this week. Like I said, keep it simple. Why it matters for students and staff. I want to talk about why it matters. We want to make it doable. So not just thinking of like that rubric, for example. I said, I want to steal that rubric from Philip Johnson. Means I'm going to have to reach out to him and actually call him and say, thank you. Can you send that rubric? And what day and time am I going to do this? I'm probably going to call him on Thursday. Calendar that thing now. So making it doable, making it something that you'll actually follow up with. And then anticipating a barrier and something that you'll do to adjust. He is a principal and I work with the Department of Education and I got all the time in the world and he may not. And so how can I make it so that he gets it to me and I'm not being a burden so I can ask him for something later? I'm not sure how I'll do that, but while y'all are thinking, I'll probably think. And then evidence that you'll look for. How will you know that it was impactful? How do you know that what you brought to the team or what you brought to your HR department is impactful and it's going to work? How will you share it with your team? And what support would you need next? So is it, I need to go ahead and take Aisha's number so that she can hold me accountable to actually doing this thing. I need to call Dr. Flynn and make sure that I heard that thing right so that I can go do it the way I need to do it. So those are just light examples. I want to give you about 7 minutes, like 5 to 10, 7 minutes to just jot that down, and then we'll come and share out with a few of us before we leave. Does that make sense, everybody in the room and in the Zoom? All right, cool. All right. I don't have to repeat it, but I will. Pay no attention to the QR code on the screen. Okay. I'm staying in the room that we're all at very different spaces in our careers right now. So I want to make sure that this is something that you feel is doable, even though the exercise is doable for you at some level. So questions are welcome. I'm going to ask for a thumbs up if you need another minute. Are you still writing? All right. Okay. She's giving me the Zoom, what do you call those? Cues that we're ready to move on. Thank you, Patty. So who wants to start with? What is your plan? What's your snapshot look like? I'll take it from the room or from the Zoom. Share your thoughts.
I'll start.
Thank you.
Like a human resources lens, and from the school that we don't necessarily need certifications for our teachers. Of course, that's best practice, but it's not a requirement for us. So my idea is to kind of poll our staff and see what they're interested in getting more professional development on, what certifications they might like to get, and to be the pathway for them to do that. So that they feel more qualified in the position and more motivated and less burnt out. And partner with the executive director to make this happen. Also partner with the accountant to try to figure out like the budget, because that's a whole nother thing. Is some people go to BD, but not everyone does.
Right.
So, like, I'm really giving to each person to fulfill these destinies, I'll call them. But they can feel like little.
Yeah.
You've been wanting to do something for a long time, and it makes you a better teacher to get the training. Let the human resources be a resource for you, and to kind of, get over those hurdles.
So, and I usually do a nudge. Are you going to use a form? Do y'all use Google? How are you going to? Okay. I'm like, how are you going to do this, Erin? Cool. Thank you. That was from the room. How about from the Zoom? Emma, no, sorry, that's you, Emma. Zoe, Val, Kylie, Kaylin.
I have a plan that I'll share.
Hi, Val. She's already spoken. So technically we've been in the Zoom. So if you
Oh,
would like to go.
I can wait.
Kaylin, I see you.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I, in 2 weeks' time, am taking on my first principalship, and I am
Yay.
moving into yeah, I'm excited. I'm moving into a school that I will be the 5th principal in 4 years. And a lot of what I'm told is just the morale is really low and teachers just don't feel appreciated. So the practice I would like to implement, I've already kind of started this, but I bought a bunch of cards that are very like punny, and I just
Honey.
want to set aside time. I made a checklist of every staff member's name and just like once a week or once a day setting to make my way around of just like a little like, thank you for doing this thing. You're valued here. And just being present
Nice.
and using that as a tool to help people feel appreciated and get to know me as a new leader.
That's really cool. I'm like, what's my nudge for her? 'Cause I'm just so excited. I can't think of anything. Okay, so I got to be objective. So how are you going to make sure that this is something that's consistent? What are you going to do when things get in the way, where are you going to put this time? Is this time for you? Are you setting aside time for them to receive this information, or is it just stopping by their door? I want a little bit more specific, just for you.
So what I sort of walked through just now when I was thinking about it is barrier will absolutely be like a time to make sure that I've done it successfully.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I am a person who has ADHD and OCD coexisting.
Oh.
So my checklist is really going to be important for holding me accountable and like setting myself a digital reminder of like fill out cards. So once a week, knowing I have 25 staff-ish, that I need to do this many in this much time to be consistent. The nice thing is the mailboxes for staff are in an easy to access location where I can just drop it in a mailbox and then it's a nice surprise and it's not really me bombarding you and then waiting around for you to appreciate what I did for you. Um, That
So-
was what I was thinking. The evidence, though, is I'm just hoping that it'll be one of those things where people start to be more comfortable over time with me. I'm not really sure if there's like an easier way to collect data on like, did you appreciate my nice gesture?
I would say we would take implicit responses, people being more, I would say people being a little bit more open to saying hi to you, coming to you, like monitoring that. I also want to call attention to the fact that a lot of times when we're doing those small things to help ourselves, like setting a timer, it may seem ridiculous as we're going through our day to day, but we have to respond to our humanness in these, knowing that we're gonna be human. Like you said, calling out your neurodivergence, like the way my brain is set up, I need someone to nudge me and make it happen, and that is okay. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Okay,
Thank you.
how about over here? Because Val already went. You interested?
Wasn't right, I don't know.
Ooh, I'm gonna come talk to you later. Okay. Who's left? Zoe and Kylie. Am I saying your name right, Kylie? Okay, good.
I will go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start small, I guess. I'm fairly new in my role as principal, but I liked the idea of the staff shout outs. So I'm thinking I'm gonna create a Google form so that way I can collect the staff shout outs
Oh,
and
that's
either
dope.
send them out in an email or just talk about them at a staff meeting, like recognize the person in front of other people at a staff meeting. Not sure which way I'll go with it, but
Mhm.
I think some of the barriers are just going to be like staff will probably be like negative about it because it's something different and something like kumbaya-ish, and I have some staff that are not into the kumbaya, but I think I need to meet the needs of the people that are those
People that need that.
motivated through
Yeah.
praise. Yeah.
And sometimes, can I add,
Mhm.
because I am the person that always is the person doing the things. Let's go. And making sure that I'm okay with the fact that this may not feel comfortable for you right now. But just like she said in our training, in the panel, this is evidence-based. These are evidence-based practices. It's not like you making it up as you go. And so as you know, and you being the leader, knowing that you have to stay one step ahead of people, they'll join in. But I also would say you reading them out for everybody versus having them read them out, maybe something that you can change, because it'll get to those people who aren't participate or don't want to participate. If they have the thing to read or they have the shout out, they didn't make it up. They just being a part of the process, and it may kind of soften their hearts a little bit to the process. Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And now things always left, but I want to come back to the room and just poke at where you started, and maybe we can support.
I'm just not sure, how to make it, like, work in the diverse part. Like,
Mhm.
how it would help make it more equally inclusive. So I don't really have a problem to base it on,
Okay. How about when you think about diversity, what are you thinking about?
like, everyone's different.
And the primary difference I'm thinking about with you is the fact that y'all are students at different levels, and thinking about diversity in that way, as opposed to some of those bigger pieces. But I won't budge. I just wanted to hear like where you were. And I hope that you hearing from other people. Oh, wait, so let's give Zoe. Zoe, are you interested in sharing? Because hearing from other people may help as well. And that's okay. No? Is that you in the chat? Oh, no. Yeah, it is. Okay. That was you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not able to speak since I'm at work right now, but I can type. We will wait for you to type, Zoe. Uh-oh. That's the end. We're ending it. I don't want to do that. So we're going to wait for Zoe. And while we're waiting for Zoe, I can talk about, like, what did I say? Do mine. So for myself, making it doable or evidence I'm gonna look for. I was talking about going back for that rubric and using it for myself. I have a training session that I hold space for our staff, and there's about 200 plus of us. I don't know if I mentioned that here in the last one, but during that time, I have space held for collaboration, for building belonging. I think the fact that this is a place where people you can think about in the department, there's 200 plus of us, and there's so many programs, initiatives, and whatnot. And a lot of us don't know what we're doing, each other are doing. And so it's really difficult to support somebody's work and to support somebody's just being human if you have no idea what they're doing and you've got a whole big place and a big space for yourself to worry about. And so I create space for us to come in together, to talk about what we're doing, to get feedback from each other, and to offer support for the work that they're doing. And that happens like, I think every fourth Wednesday of the month. Hopefully one day we'll get to a space where we're doing it every Wednesday. But for right now, like you said, keep it small. And that took me about a year to make space for. I've been with the department for almost 3 years, or two years and change. And that took me about a year to get done. And so we created space. Then we said we needed space. Then we created a space on the calendar. And then we created a Zoom, and then we shared it out. So in that process took, for real, a year. And so just giving that example of starting small, it also looked like starting really long journey toward what you want. And it can be an adventure. And if you work together and you work with the people that you support, and you build spaces of belonging for your own self and your own professional work, it can make it easier for you to put those things into practice so you can retain others. So, and is that Zoe? I hope it's Zoe. Yay. So I'm planning on doing a meeting with my host within the next couple of weeks to kind of just talk about how I have been doing during student teaching. I want to first have her talk about what I am doing well and not well, and then do some self-reflection. I think one barrier for me personally is taking some criticism to heart, but I ultimately know that this is what is pushing me to become a better teacher. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, a skill that I would recommend is really getting a really tough skin and keeping your heart soft. And that is a skill too. And realizing that the person that's giving you critique, well, what do we say? Best intentions. They're assuming best intentions from them, and knowing that once you get that feedback, you will be a better person, because now you know. I think we talked a lot about social emotional learning. And we can say SEL or make it a coined acronym, but it really boils down to being self-aware and knowing how to manage yourself in a space and with other people, so that you can get to a goal, a purposeful goal, whether it's a personal goal or it's a goal that you're doing collectively. And this one right now is retaining robust, educated workforce. Super important. And so I really appreciate, Zoe. It sounds like you're in the first stages of your career, and so I'm here to spur you on. One thing you can do too with that is have a buddy that you can vent and curse people out, and then say, okay, I feel better, and then go about your business. It's always fun to do it together. All right. As we close out, there's some steps on the screen, hopefully in the chat, to create an engine account, because all of the things that we talked about here, I plan on adding. I'm hoping that I can get that rubric that he talked about, so tangible and so easy, and put it in our resources. Our resources will be available after this presentation is over, and we'll be able to chat also. So there's live chat. So if you haven't already created an account for Engine, again, it's our learning management system. Those are the instructions. I look forward to hearing from you in the Zoom. As a director of strategic partnerships as well, I get a little bit more flexibility about seeing people one-to-one and going to visit their schools and going to talk to you or others about your programs and about what's going on at your school or in your organization. And so keep me in mind and keep me posted on what's going on. And I really appreciate your time today. So that's all that I have. Any questions? Okay, y'all have been awesome. And this is very intimate, so I really appreciate it. I hated standing in one place, but it is what it is. Thank you so much, Kylie. Any questions? Anything out here that you want to say? Any final words? I don't have any final words, but other than thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay. Okay. All right, I'm gonna hang around. For you all, there's 3 of us in the room, plus our facilitator. And so we're gonna hang out, but not for long. But again, I'm here. Take care. And I hope to hear from you soon. Reach out to me, aisha.hall@maine.gov, if engine is something that's too far beyond what you need. And I'll put it in the chat as well. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I can't type. Bam. All right. Thank you. I love engaging with our educators. It gives me all the hope that y'all are gonna hang around and be a part of this situation. Thank you so much. All right, I'll end it. Stop my share.